Welcome to Leaders in the Light. This isn't just another podcast, this is a revolution.
We're Amy Shaw and Cara Calvin, two female entrepreneurs who refuse to settle. We've built businesses, taken risks, and rewritten the rules. And now we're bringing you with us.
This is for the women who have done playing small, who crave real conversations, raw truth, and unfiltered wisdom from the ones who've walked through the fire and come out unstoppable.
We're diving deep. The risks, the breakdowns before the breakthroughs, the mindset shifts and the bold moves that separate the ones who dream from the ones that do.
This is about power, expansion, and community. It's about stepping into the life you're meant to lead without fear, without limits, without apology.
So if you're ready to wake up, own your story and rise, you're in the right place. Hit follow, leave a review, and share this with the women who need it. Let's amplify our voices and lead the way together. Hi, so we're here today to talk to my gorgeous co-founder, Cara. So where do I even start about Cara? Now, Cara, I have known...
40 minutes.
Yes, okay, so I'll have to whip it up. But I've known Cara now for not a long time, but a very deep soul connection. So we met together and I just thought this girl is in her woo. She is magnetic. She's got something about her. She triggered people, which I found really interesting. I was like, this is my kind of girl, like deep and raw. And I think the more we've got to know each other, the deeper we've got as a mum, as a friend, as a human, as a transformative coach, all of the things that you bring to the table as the human that you are. We are all very lucky to be in your presence, and we are all deeply grateful that you are on our universal plan. So that's okay.
Very kind.
We wanted to talk a little bit about you today. You've got a really beautiful story. You've had some really big moments in your life that we'd love to sort of like talk a little bit about today, and also about all the success that you've had through your career as well. So I guess we'll just start hard and fast. What was your rock bottom moment that pivoted your life into the trajectory that it is today?
Yeah, well, we're just going straight into it.
You went a hard one for me, so.
I had a really fairly normal and happy upbringing. So I was actually born in Oamaru and ended up growing up in Ashburton and came up to Christchurch for high school. So my family moved each of those places. And I had a really happy childhood, but there was always something within me, even as a child. I probably remember from about 4 or 5, just feeling like I wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. There was something about just my being that I never felt worthy, and there was something that I always needed to prove. And so that kind of was a narrative for most of my teenage years, and I created some really strong identities around the things that I was good at. Mm-hmm. So, I was really good at sport, and, I was average at school, but above average, I guess. And so,
I can't imagine you being average at school.
I started to recognise that I got the validation I needed outside of myself when I was achieving.
Yeah.
And I had a really unhealthy relationship with food throughout my life, and recognised that probably now in retrospect, I was using it as a numbing mechanism for some of those big emotions that I was feeling that I didn't know how to process. Mm-hmm. So I was never really taught how to process my emotions. So back to your question, one of those rock bottom moments for me really came when I was 18. So I had left high school with, like you say, relatively good grades. I was always really creative, but there was a part of me that kind of always knew that success, or I was taught that success looked like corporate job, money, cars, investments, what we sort of seek out as success, and what I was taught was success.
Material success.
And part of that was also how I looked. Mm-hmm. So success was to be thin, to be fit, to be beautiful. And those sort of narratives had weaved their way through my childhood through, I'm not going to say social media, but it was more like magazines, mm-hmm. The way, TV shows, society, and those sorts of things. So I went to university to study law, even though I knew that I was not going to be a lawyer, but I thought that would make me look smart. It would give me the success and the money that I desired to be successful. But actually what I really wanted to do at that time was to be an interior designer. And I now, interestingly, have an interior design diploma. But really it was the start of me doing things that I thought I should, and that would please other people, and that would give me that external validation. But really it was the start of me distrusting myself in my own intuition.
Yeah.
So at 18, I spiraled downhill very quickly with an eating disorder. So I'd had sort of been depressed on and off throughout high school, and a lot of that had to do with my weight, the way I felt about myself physically. But I had joined Weight Watchers, believe it or not, when I was 18 to help with my weight management.
Wow.
And that actually was very normal. You know, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, that was kind of what was done in...
At 18?
Yeah.
Wow.
And what happened was I became very obsessive about calorie counting, understanding food, and I did lose quite a lot of weight because I had put a lot of weight on in university through drinking and numbing and partying and all of that. I would have partied 4 days a week. And that was a lot, obviously, because I was trying to study law, of all things. So I developed an eating disorder. Well, I developed it. It's not really the right way to put it, but I had an eating disorder. I had bulimia.
Yeah.
So I would binge eat my emotions and then vomit. And so I was very unwell. I was put in the outpatient program at Princess Margaret. There were no beds. There wasn't enough beds. And obviously the girls that had anorexia, the really underweight and physically notably unwell, they often got those beds because they needed them medically.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the start of this journey of self-worth and really starting to trust myself. And although it was a horrible, horrible period of my life, I feel so deeply grateful for that, because I feel like if I didn't start that personal growth journey and start that deep knowing that I was going to heal, and that started understanding and learning the tools I needed even now to navigate challenges and my emotions and my self-worth, I wouldn't have actually started on that journey and become the person that I am today. And I actually healed my relationship with food through that journey, and actually probably also my relationship with alcohol. Yeah. Because control is a huge part of eating disorders, and it's a huge life lesson for me even today around needing to control things. But what I ended up doing was not finishing the law degree, but doing a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and History, doing that through correspondence. And then at that point, getting to a place where I had done a lot of work on myself. So the eating disorder still existed, but it wasn't the vomiting every day, multiple times. Like I'm talking 7 or 8 times a day. Like really unwell, vomiting blood. My heart stopped twice. I had to get taken to hospital. So I was really quite unwell. Yeah. I'd had panic attacks, anxiety attacks, lack of oxygen, in a really dark place. Yeah. But again, back to your question, that really was the catalyst for me to change my life. And interestingly, there was this deep knowing at that time when I was in my 18, 19, 20, 21, that kind of period, where I just knew I was meant for more. Yeah. And I also knew I was going to heal. Yeah. I knew
you were going to come back from
I was going to fight it. And I used to, I wasn't going to let it win, because I knew that I was here for greater things, and I couldn't stay in that place. It was toxic and negative, and every day was traumatic. And that was really the beginning of my journey, sort of in that period while I was at university, to kind of pushing me in a different way. And I still uncover, we still all today, even if you do deeply love yourself, look in the mirror sometimes and think, I feel 100%. This and look this way, and I don't like the way I look, and I don't like the way I look in that outfit. But I think that's normal. Yeah. It's part of being human. Yeah.
And being a female too.
Exactly. But having those tools and learning what I've learned on my journey has really been literally.
I also think that's made you the coach and work on that transform. Like, if you haven't had that darkness or you haven't had those struggles, how can you teach people how to get out of it? That's
exactly right.
And control can be many things. It can be burnout. It can be, there's so many different things that it can cover. So I think all of that work that you put in, that you can help transform other females that are having any control issues.
Oh, absolutely.
Any identity issues,
Oh, absolutely. And, the addictions or the numbing just moved into different areas. So, it moved from the eating and the alcohol to over-exercising. Then it worked to overproducing. So there was always still a part of me that wanted to validate.
Do you still feel that now?
Yeah, I do to a degree.
Yeah. Like, is it always sort of like on your shoulder sitting there?
There's definitely a part of me. So now when I feel like I have imposter syndrome, or I'm out of my depth, or I've lost control, when I'm in a bit of a spiral, which happens, like I'm human, when I'm having a bad day, often I recognise that the thoughts are, I look a certain way, I need to lose weight, I need to go for a run, I shouldn't eat that.
Yeah.
That's my default. But thankfully I have the tools now to recognise it and never act on it.
Yeah.
So I will still eat normally and well throughout the day to sort of help my body, fuel my body. I will never thrash my body. And also I now can have a conversation with that negative voice and be like, thanks for letting me recognise that there's still a shadow there.
Yeah. Now, can you fuck off?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I literally have those conversations. So it's something that I carry with me, but it doesn't impact me anymore. So food used to control every thought of my day, but now it doesn't at all. Yeah. So yes, I eat really well. I don't, I know that my body doesn't like gluten. I've been sober for 5.5 years. Don't touch any drugs, but there's still a part of me that has those same thoughts. And I think that's normal, particularly when you're doing the amount of healing that we do in terms of looking at our shadows constantly, doing our inner child healing. Some of those things get thrown up in your face really fast.
Daily. You're like, oh, you're still here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, that's my default. Yeah. My default is to blame my body for the way it is and the way it looks. Yeah. And I know that now. So it's easy because I know the enemy.
You can say, well, actually, no, I'm not here to address that today.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know that I'm, not all the things I think I am.
Yeah.
I know that I'm not fat, and I know that I'm not all the horrible things I used to say to myself. Yeah. But I still feel that feeling. Yeah. Because it's a program that I've carried probably for multiple lifetimes.
And it feels comfortable. You know, we don't like it, but our nervous system's like, hey, that's comfortable. I'm going to stick with that.
Even though it's not nice. And my nervous system still finds my negativity towards myself comfortable.
Lovely. Hey, welcome. Come on, pull up a seat.
Yes.
But I think also that's obviously just such a triumphant story, I think that takes so much power, and that's what I met you when I saw you. I was like, this girl's not here to fuck around, like you were like,
I'm running out of time.
No, yeah, and like you were always like, I want more, you were destined for more, and you knew that deeply about yourself. But I guess with that elevated growth comes a lot of goodbyes. And it can feel lonely, and we've spoken about this before, but are you comfortable to talk about obviously how that impacts family life, friendships, all of those things as you grow and you change?
Definitely. So I have a different view on it today than I would have even had 6 months ago. But what inevitably happened in my life is when I decided I wanted more and I started making that courageous choices to move towards more, what I recognised is that people who I had spent a lot of time with in my life just fell away. Yeah. And nobody really talks about the grief and the sadness that comes with the ending of friendships. And I think we try, and relationships. Yeah. I think we try and hold on to that so tightly because we're afraid. Yeah. There's this fear of not being loved.
Yeah, or loneliness makes you make bad decisions.
That's exactly right. And also when that pain is deep, you can do a lot of things like, alcohol, drugs, make bad decisions with men. Yeah. It's not uncommon, but it's also a pattern that can break. But
it still hurts, right? Like I've had to do a lot of goodbyes and they hurt, man. Like
still hurt.
They really break your heart.
Definitely. But I think too, it's part of the growth. Yeah. And like we talk about, and I talk about a lot with my clients, and I've talked about on other podcasts, is you cannot put more new books onto a bookshelf where there's no room. Yeah. Yep. So you need to be able to clear space for the new. And if I was still hanging around in the low vibration areas that I was and doing those same things that I was doing, out partying, drinking on Friday night, shit talking people, gossiping, not working on myself and being around people that didn't lift me up and I didn't feel safe around because of the things they were saying about me, if I had stayed there, my frequency would have remained low and I wouldn't have elevated to a place where all these new amazing people have come into my life. And so now I look at it a little bit differently. Yes, it's sad, and I still love all of these people that have been huge parts of my life. Hugely. And I'm still friends with everybody, but it's about who I allow close to me. Yeah. And there's very few people that I do because I recognise how precious my environment and my energy is.
Yeah. Well, your community is like literally one of the you can't live without your community.
And the way I look at it now is that my vision and my mission and what I'm creating, it's so clear in my mind that anything that gets in my way that makes me feel like shit or slows me down, it's gone.
Yeah.
I have no time to entertain this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's also, the misunderstanding is also the same. So there's a lot of people, family members, people you can't get rid of who will never understand my journey, but that's okay because I know they love me unconditionally. Yeah. But for me, I know what I'm creating and I know what I'm here to do. And I've actually been back into 2 past lives through past life regressions where I have helped women in those lives and I've got to the end of my life and this overwhelming feeling of just, I should have done more.
Yeah.
And I carry that
Nothing's
feeling
worse
with
than
me.
that feeling.
And it's not even regret. It's just knowing I had more potential than I was afraid to be seen, so I didn't do it. And so now in this season, I'm so obsessed with creating a legacy, fulfilling my potential and creating impact that the fear is still there, it never goes away. Yeah. But actually the mission is so much bigger.
Well, I think you're, one of the most brave, courageous people I know because you're like, it doesn't matter, and you just step forward and you just have your vision and your mission and you're just like bull in a china shop, you're like everything out of the way. And I think that takes a lot of guts because with that comes a lot of chatter, with that comes a lot of talking and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fear is still there.
Yeah. I
still feel like I don't want to be seen. I still know that people shit talk about me. I still don't want to be the topic of conversation of, what's she wearing, what's she saying.
How do you change that narrative within yourself?
So what I recognise is that people who talk shit about me have nothing I want.
Yeah.
So unless they are... I'm not really... Yes, it bothers me.
But anyone at a higher vibration is not talking shit anyway.
I'm really blessed because I have you.
Yeah.
I have Emma, my best friend. I have my husband. I have people who get it.
Your biggest cheerleaders.
I have people who I deeply respect and love who have got my back. So if I get knocked to the ground, which I do, the number of times that I've had to be picked up and dusted off when I've had someone say something about me and it's really stung, especially, when it's someone who I didn't think would do that to me. But equally, again, I don't feel angry or resentful towards that person. I just realise that I have triggered something in them.
Yeah.
And
it's the
that's
trigger
their shadow, not mine.
Yeah.
So I can't control anyone else.
No.
I can only control myself and the things that I do and the way I show up. And actually, I think to myself, you may be triggered by me or somebody might be triggered by me, but their daughter or someone they love could be inspired and it could change their life. And
or someone's doing a dark time.
Exactly.
And it's
and not everyone is going to get my message or understand me or like me. And that is normal.
Yeah.
Even if I did nothing with my life and I was a housewife and
It'd still probably piss people off.
and I was still corporate, people would still not like me.
Yeah.
Or, we find that throughout life. So... and the other thing is, I've been where most people are in that corporate grind, working to prove myself, earning a lot of money, working a ridiculous amount of hours, moving around the world, chasing that validation. And I was so out of alignment from my purpose, my mission here. I was succeeding from the outside.
But dying on the inside.
But I was dying on the inside and I was burnt out and my nervous system was dysregulated. I struggled to get pregnant originally with my first child. I was underweight. I was really an unhealthy person and it all started with my mind and what the expectation that I had placed on myself for what success looked like.
Yeah.
But
that's what we're programmed from the boomers because that's what success is.
And that's no disrespect to them.
Because that's what they were programmed.
We talk about vision and vision boards and I coach heavily on this. Like I have stepped into my vision board so many times. I have created my life. I have not jumped on for the ride. No. I have created every part of it. And actually, as I've evolved, it looks different to me now. And even now, the vision that I live in now, I live in a life that's amazing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like my life anymore. And my husband and I talk about this a lot. And so it's about having the courage to say, what does it look like next?
Yeah.
Who is the real, true, authentic version of me when I take down more layers and more cages?
Yeah.
And we say all the time, we are deeply committed to fulfilling I'm deeply committed, and you are, to fulfilling our potential in this lifetime, no matter what that looks like.
Yes.
And that kind of gives me that motivation, that intrinsic motivation just to go for it. And I feel like, so I just turned 40 in November, but I feel like I was doing okay to that point. But I think when I turned 40, a lot has happened to me in the last 12 months. 18 months with spiritual awakening and starting new businesses and really regulating my nervous system and working on my masculine versus feminine energy and really connecting with my body, which I've never done my whole life. That's really changed my life. And so even in the last 6 months, I am a completely different person than I have ever been. And
I agree. From when I knew you to now is a huge quantum shift.
And that doesn't happen by accident.
No.
That happens from a hell of a lot of deep work, a lot of emotional healing, inner child healing, investment in myself, deeply sitting with the pain of some of the shadows, and making some really difficult decisions around my environment and what I accept and what I don't accept as in friendship. So,
and I think that with that comes the family dynamics as well. Obviously, one of the biggest identity shift that we can have as a female is when we have children. So how has that identity shift changed you since having Arch and Miller?
So that was really difficult for me. So what happened is when I left New Zealand, when I finished my degree, I was well enough to go in terms of my eating disorder. And I moved myself to Melbourne by flicking a coin between Melbourne and Sydney, and it landed on Melbourne. So my best friend at the time, Alexa, and I moved there, and no jobs, nothing. And essentially for 7 years I lived there and built this career in corporate. So I was the real life donner off suits. And then I got moved to Sydney to work for the managing partner of the world's largest law firm. So I was working ridiculous hours. I was highly focused on how much money I earned, what my title was.
How well you were doing at your job.
And my value was placed on productivity. So the harder I worked, the better I felt about myself as a human. And that came with money, that came with bonuses, everything. So not only did we move, so I was in Australia for just under 10 years and Sam had moved over as well. I was living in Melbourne when we met and he moved over. And we got to this place where we were coming back to New Zealand. It was 2014 and he's a builder, so he was coming back obviously post-earthquake, a lot of work. And similar to you with family, close to family, to have children. And so what happened, not only did I come crashing down from great heights of being corporate in Sydney, earning close to $300,000 a year, to coming back to Christchurch with no job, being offered PA roles for $100,000, which to be fair is good money in Christchurch for a PA role. Going from an apartment in North Bondi and Dover Heights to living this life, to being in Christchurch in a house that we had bought to renovate, literally unemployable. And then I got pregnant. And I had a bit of a fertility journey because I had high levels of cortisol and adrenaline. Obviously, my hormones were out. So I really struggled being a parent. That identity. There's
a lot of shifts all at the same time.
The real shift went from my corporate identity and my Sydney life to being a mother in Christchurch. I was earning no money. I felt like I was worthless.
How's that? See, even through all my children, I've always earned.
So I didn't earn money for about 8 months for both of them. That was difficult for me because I also had this programming from my grandmother and my mother of never rely on a man financially. And I never had to. Sam did not think twice. He didn't care. It's always been our money. It's always been, you know, and I sacrificed my career, my body, my lifestyle, everything for these children. So, and I obviously would never take it back. No. But the whole journey, so Arch is nearly 10 and Miller's nearly 8, I've resisted it the whole time. And there's a part of me that... so very quickly, like within a couple of years, I was in a network marketing top 2% globally, earning money. And that was a huge thing for me. But that identity shift of becoming a mother was a really difficult one. And I still find it difficult. I have been writing children's books, creating global businesses, building brands, coaching, doing workshops, gone back into corporate, come out again, because there's something about me that needs money for validation. And I still do. It feels different now because I feel as that that I'm more in alignment, and what I do really adds such an enormous amount of value, so it doesn't really feel like work, but also I can monetize what I love.
Yeah.
And what we do as well, with connection and community and transforming women. But I think that's still part of my struggle today. But becoming a mother, I resisted it. I resented it probably for a long time. I found it really difficult. And I also hadn't had a huge personal growth awakening at that point, or a spiritual awakening. So I had a very dysregulated nervous system. I was a yelling mum. I went from 0 to 100 really fast, still do to a point, but I've been working on that heavily now for about 3-4 years. And there's a part of me that, doesn't like that version of me. And that's probably why this journey sort of started. But so many women I work with are similar to me.
Oh, and honestly, most females I know,
and they're heavily in their masculine, dysregulated nervous systems, trying to prove themselves.
It's fight or flight.
And you're also in that same position where you're doing a huge amount of hours running companies, but you also are a mum.
Yeah,
you are.
But then it's very hard to switch from that masculine running a business to then walking in the house and switching on that feminine. It actually takes time to rebalance those two.
Absolutely, it does. And it's about having that support network around you, but it's also the more you heal as a mother, and the more you look at your triggers, and the more you dispel some of those generational curses and some of that trauma that's been carried in your lineage, the closer you become to your authentic self. And for me, a lot of the stuff that I have to work through with my kids is holding space for them emotionally. Because I never learned how to hold space for myself emotionally. So fight is my trauma response. So I'll automatically yell, scream, be defensive, which isn't a nice thing.
No,
it's very masculine.
Because then it doesn't hold that space, and they pick up those same things.
Totally. But the same as you, when you're sitting in boardrooms with 15 men, and you have to hold your own. I swear in my everyday language a lot. That was very normal. I hold my own in that space because I had to.
Same.
And I've kind of carried that through. And like I said, control.
And there's still good parts of it too.
Absolutely. But it's about balancing it and realizing it's not coming from a place of a trigger or a reaction. But actually, it's coming from an intentional place. Like, you can be intentionally strong and you can intentionally fight. But when you're doing it as a response to something so small as your kids having an argument in the backseat, that is where you realise that you're dysregulated. And I am the same. And even my breathing, like I had to get a breathing coach because I'm like such a shallow breather because I'm constantly on. And I think too, it's just, wanting to understanding that external validation will never give you what you want.
No.
The freedom and that self-love piece and that worthiness comes from within you. And that's been the biggest part of my journey. I was never going to find it in corporate. I was never going to find it in my salary.
But you're also a souls teacher like me. So
I was never going to find it in men, in alcohol, in the way I looked, in looking a certain way. And ironically, obviously, as you know, the more you look after yourself, the more you shine. And it's got nothing to do with how you look. It's how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, totally.
It's your energetic field. And so once I understood energy, now I use that to my advantage. And you say I'm magnetic and charismatic. Actually, that's literally my energy field because I've learned how to manage it. And how to expand it when I need to and bring it in when I don't. And equally,
I just leave mine open all the time. I don't know that's a bad thing. And also because I'm a manifesting generator like you, there's a million balls in there all the time. And I was always told I need to focus on one thing and I never finished anything. And the reality is I was just trying lots of paths to figure out exactly who I was and what I really, truly wanted. But also I'm a triple Sagittarius. So my moon, my rising and my sun are all in Sagittarius. And the fourth sign, which I can't tell you what it is, it's something else. The fourth leg of the table is Leo. So I am full fire. So full steam.
I'm a full fire human being. So there's no earth, there's no water, there's no air. I struggle to be grounded. I'm really full noise energetically all the time. And so what I found was there was a lot of noise in my head all the time. And that created a disconnect with my body. It also impacted my ability to ground myself in who I truly was because I just couldn't shut the noise down. So unlike you, I wouldn't say I had ADHD, but there is a lot
we do talk about a lot. Neurospicing, we don't even do labels.
So my brain works in systems, which you know, and that's what made me really good at my job.
Yes.
And it makes me a good business owner because I do tick all the boxes, but I can create things really quickly.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, that has its challenges as well because I'm constantly controlling and keeping everything in motion. Which
can be exhausting.
And sometimes I think to myself, is that nurture versus nature, or is this who I truly am? Because my parents are they've got a high level of work.
Yes.
They're very perfectionist in the way that they operate. They have a high level of control, very detail oriented. So I often wonder, and my sister is, and I often wonder, is that genetic? Like, is that something that I've carried as the way that I'm built from birth, or is that part of my programming, having lived in my household for so long, where even if you kick your shoes off?
I think most of it's programming. We don't come in with preconceived systems in our body. It's we learn them as we go.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had to become this version of me, had to unlearn and everything, really, just dismantle everything that I've ever learnt. Yeah. And it kind of, I already had a process because I had an eating disorder. Yeah. So I had already
overcome
I had
control.
already learnt how to reprogram my brain. I understood cognitive behavioural therapy. Yeah. I understood a lot around, I was fascinated with the brain, and I still am, to a point where like it is a bit obsessive in the way that the brain works and functions.
Does mine stress you out?
No, not at all, because it's healthy.
Yeah.
It's an unhealthy brain that bothers me. It's the instant negative. It's the constant worry. Yeah. It's the lack of sleep. It's the drugs and alcohol. It's the prescription medication. It's all of it's the concussions in rugby. Don't let me get started on that. But it's those things that kill off brain cells that worry me, because even if you have good intentions, your brain controls everything you do. And it can repair itself, but you've got to lead that really holistic, healthy lifestyle, and you've got to constantly be curating your environment, whether it's people, whether it's what you listen to, whether it's
everything,
curating everything to elevate. And that is what I have done in my life. Really. You know, I've really curated a safe place for me to be me.
Which is amazing. And I think as well, you know, you've done so much work on this earth plane as well, but then I know your spiritual journey's been really big, especially, you know, probably over the last 12 months even.
It sure has.
And I know there was a really big, you know, traumatic thing in your life with your nana that happened at your wedding.
Yes.
I know that changed a lot for you, you know, dealing through all that grief and moving into the next one. So can you talk a little bit about that part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people know this, but if you don't know, so Sam and I were married at Terrace Downs, which is, you know, 15-minute drive out of Christchurch. And my nana, who I was really close to, so my mum's mum, she had a massive stroke during our wedding ceremony. And she had a brain bleed the size of a man's fist. And so what happened was she was airlifted to Christchurch Hospital. And so with that, obviously, my family left the wedding, like my aunties and uncles and things. My mum stayed with me, it was her mum. And
it's a tough spot to be in.
And we found out about 9 o'clock. We continued with the wedding. We found out about 9 o'clock that she had been put in a coma and she was not going to wake up, pretty much, like that she was going to bleed out. So, you know, when people say to me, you know, my wedding was my happiest day of my life, mine, yes, it was amazing. I married Sam and my friends were all there and it was beautiful, but there's just this air of sadness that I feel. It's just this deep sadness around it. And, you know, you try and make positive of it. We still went on a honeymoon. I never went to her funeral. But
she would have preferred that.
Yeah, that's what everyone said. And I know she
Celebrate
she
life.
would have been so devastated of that, you know, that happening. I was so close to her. I was the oldest grandchild. And I had spent so much time with her in my life. Like, she was like my mum. And so anyway, I carried this a lot, this like pain. I still kind of do to a degree, but what happened was when I started to do some healing around the grief of it, she sort of came through and said to me, you know, I knew that I'd have more impact on you in spirit than I ever would have in the human world, in this third dimension world, which was so powerful for me. And so she's always with me. I know she is. I can feel her. But about I'd been on the spiritual awakening journey, but probably in the last 2 years, it has really activated to the part. So I am not a seer like you, but I'm a feeler. Yeah. So I can feel so many things in my body energetically, messages, I get downloads, and signs,
don't forget those clear as day signs.
So I get clear as day signs, synchronicities and coincidences are very heavy for me. So I get a lot of messages. And I think when I started to slow down, to speed up, to regulate my nervous system, connect with my body and connect with my heart, and really start on this deep healing spiritual journey, it became louder, my gifts became stronger. And actually even just having you around me has really supported me, because you're such a great mentor in that space, because I'm able to validate some of these things that I'm feeling and seeing because you can, that I'm feeling because you can see.
Yeah.
And that's been really helpful for me, because I'm almost trying to decode the messages that I get in my body. But for example, if you're doing your work, and you're talking about something or helping heal somebody from what you can see and gone back into a past life, I can physically feel that in my body. So if someone dies of a heart attack and we're doing healing work, my heart is tight. I know there's something wrong with the heart.
Yeah.
Or if I can't breathe, I know I was hung or I was strangled or I was drowned. Or
whereas for me, I just say 2 seconds, because that's all I want to see.
Yeah.
So I'll go 2 seconds, because otherwise it's very traumatic.
It's traumatic for you to see.
Yeah, because to actually physically see it, so it's like a 2 seconds.
And so, but I can feel it in my body. And so there are lots of, gifts like that have really activated lately. And it's funny that we're talking about this, because we've both worn masks and created these versions of ourselves in society that come off very polished and very put together. But actually this is a huge part of a female's journey, and especially if you're an awoke female, awoke to that sort of side of the way it is. But actually I find it so comforting knowing that there's a higher power, the universe is in control of these sorts of things, and these challenges are here to teach us something. Yeah. And all of those rock bottoms that I've had in my life have been to teach us something, you know. And there's been so many things in my life that have happened that have been really difficult. But again, they're all lessons, and they've all taught me something. And then from that, something amazing has happened. Yeah. And so I welcome those challenges because I know they're there for a reason, you know.
Because it's very easy to get into victim, but as soon as you change that programming, you're like, oh, that's amazing.
And you're allowed to be in victim. You're allowed to feel like shit. You're allowed to have a cry. You're allowed to scream and yell. Like I do all those things. Yeah. But it's about recognizing that those low frequency emotions like anger, jealousy, frustration, fear, greed, they all keep people stuck in low frequency opportunity and experiences and around low frequency people. When you start to do this work and you elevate to love, gratitude, enlightenment, peace, you find, and joy and fun and those sorts of things, you find that opportunities, miracles are happening all around you, and you feel guided and supported because you're more connected. And that's kind of the narrative of my journey. And I think that last piece is really surrender, letting go of the control of things and recognizing that, like you say, nothing that's meant for me will ever pass me by, but it's my job to continue to be courageous, to continue to transform and share my journey and support women to evolve, so that we're raising that consciousness collectively, but also it's all part of my own journey to transform.
And we want people to have what we have. Yeah. You know, from the outside it's kind of, it can come off arrogant or confident or different or whatever. But the reason we do it is because we actually want to share the magic. You know, I want people to feel the peace and the surrender and the alignment and the support from spirit and all of those things, because I'm a different person. I was quite empty through a lot of my life, you know, and now my cup's full, and some days, and I'm the loneliest I've ever been. I am the most alone I've ever been, but I'm still deeply fulfilled. And
you probably had to learn that lesson and be by yourself in order to heal those parts of you and to become that.
Because once you are forced on your own, it is loud. Exactly. It's just you.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, so all of those parts of my journey have been a huge part of it. Really. But I'm excited for the next chapter, for what we're creating, you know, for what's next for me on. So I work one-on-one with women now, and in group settings and run workshops, and we're obviously doing the retreat and the podcast. So it's really just about bringing in the people that are ready to transform and to heal and to grow and to,
take a seat at the table, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's for filling up those seats at the table.
Yeah, but not even for us anymore, I think,
For themselves, and just to feel safe and to feel safe to be yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Well, you're an absolute powerhouse, Cara. I am always grateful to the universe for putting us together. The deep chats.
Family fun day. It was a wild day.
It was just like, and again, anything that is meant to be for us and destined on our path cannot pass us by. And I think the work that you have done and the transformation you've done within yourself, within your clients, what you have done for the female so far, I think it is such an exciting thing that we get to fuse our magic together to really have the two parts of anything that a female needs. So I think
it's wild.
You are amazing. I love hearing your story. I never get over it. I think you're an absolute amazing human being. So thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Leaders in the Light podcast.
If today's conversation sparked something within you, take a moment to reflect, integrate, and share it with someone who needs it. We're here to rise together in truth, in purpose, and in power.
Make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and come connect with us over on Instagram at Leaders in the Light. We'll be here, holding the light until you're ready to rise again.